Okay, already. This season, we're coaching someone through what so many of us go through.
I'm Alison.
I'm Michelle.
Meet Sophie. She stayed too long, she'll break up, she'll heal, she'll date, she'll spiral. She's you, she's us.
We'll walk with her and you through every phase, from heartbreak to wholeness.
If you're tired of the chaos and ready to thrive in singlehood and in love,
welcome to season 3. Oh,
that was
so
so
close.
good.
Hello.
Hey, hello again. It's been so long.
It's been so long. Oh, welcome to episode 5.
Wait, episode 5. This is big stuff happening today.
This is the hard part, the hardest part.
This is the hard part. She's deciding whether or not she was breaking up, and it's the day.
Yeah, it is, and it's very rough after everything she's been through.
Yeah, it's rough because also kind of, people kind of come to coaches with the intention of fixing whatever needs fixing. But sometimes we're coming to the conclusion that leaving is maybe the best option.
Exactly, yeah.
And
Sometimes
it's accepting that, it's not giving up, because I think we live, like, Sophie is in the generation of women who are, have been told, like, never to give up and to keep fighting. And that looks different in different women, but her, it's kind of, she put it in her mind that she needed to stay, and that if she left it would be giving up and quitting, and that quitting isn't good.
Yeah, and it's a failure.
And it's a failure. There's so much divorce, in her parents' generation and around her and things like that. Now she's kind of realizing it, and we're going to walk her through it.
Yeah, but she gave it a chance, and she was here, and she showed up, and she tried, and she realized together with all of us that this isn't working out. And the real failure is staying in something that just isn't for you or isn't working right.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, fight or flight is a survival mode. And there was a third one, but it doesn't really matter today. And flight is not, quitting. It's choosing the better option for survival. And kind of, I'm not a fan of using these, big allegories and comparisons and things like that, but here it really works. Flight isn't giving up. Flight is just finding the best solution for you.
Yeah, and taking yourself out of a bad situation that's harming you.
Yeah, you want to, thrive and just, and it doesn't make her now ex-boyfriend and, a bad person. We covered this in a previous episode. It just means you're not right for each other, and that's fine. She was wondering a lot about, am I staying out of love or fear or guilt or comfort? And I think yes to everything. It's just, I don't know about guilt. Not in her
guilty
situation.
of leaving someone.
Yeah, you don't want to hurt someone, it's because often when you leave someone, sadly it takes the other one, off guard. And so when you come down and sit, when you sit someone down and say, I'm breaking up, then you've been kind of thinking, she's been thinking about it for weeks now. He's being caught off guard.
Well, if he's attentive and realizes all the issues that they've been having and how hard she's been trying to talk to him and he's been pushing her away, then when you're having issues for a very long time, and it shouldn't come as a surprise. And if it comes as a surprise to him, then that means the issues were way deeper than we thought.
It's, for me, if he were being attentive, then
they wouldn't need to break up.
Yeah. It's, we're going off the fact that he's a good guy. He's just not good for her.
Exactly.
We're not talking about the toxic relationships we know that these relationships are shit, and and it's tough and everything. We're not talking about these, because these are outlying relationships. Where they're in the periphery, and it's just, we can't. If people want to talk about it, message us. We will definitely answer, either in a live or whatever. But this is just, a normal relationship. They just broke up. He wasn't amazing for her. But not a bad guy. He wasn't paying attention. He kind of, did what a lot of people do, of just kind of like went into the routine of it. And so he's taken off guard, and, and that's just, And if you were, advice out there, pay attention when your partner is saying something is up, then
Yeah.
something is up. Even if you're not feeling it, they are feeling it.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're not attentive and if you're not listening, then you don't even know, you don't realize that something's going on with the other person. And that just, you know, you're just stuck with someone who's, everything is just flying over their heads or going in from one ear and out of the other.
Mm,
And you're just, maybe they're not hearing you, they're not seeing you, they're not listening, just not there. So, in a sense, you're not even together anyway, because they're just maybe physically there, but beyond that, they're just not, they've don't tuned out kind of thing.
yeah, for sure. And I think, her other question was, did I express what I needed?
Hmm.
And I think this is a very feminine trait. I mean,
Yeah.
some men will, have this trait as well, but it's, we feel the need to say it several times and be very clear. You say,
Yeah.
our job as a human being, not as a woman, as a human being, is
Hmm.
to say what we are feeling once, maybe twice. Just say, something's up and we need to talk about
Yeah.
it. And she definitely did that. And there's no way, if a person can't hear that on the first go, then they can never hear it. Because
Yeah.
you don't have to, it's very close to the whole, consent discussion and how to express consent and things like that. But basically you only need to say things once for them to be heard. If you have to say them more than once, then they'll never be heard.
Hmm.
And that's the terrible truth. And she definitely said, something's up. I'm talking to coaches and things like that. And he just kind of, thought it was all about her. And so no, you say things once. And if the person is interested and if the person, is meant for you in a, actual, they want to work it out, then they'll hear it and then you can work things through.
Yeah. And often they, people don't want to, if they don't want to do the work, they want to assume that you're the problem and you're the issue and you need to figure things out for yourself and whatever, and I'll just be a background ornament or whatever. And to be honest, like when you're with someone, it's never just about you. Even if maybe you have more issues or you're having more struggles, it's always something that needs to be done together. And I have a friend, I've mentioned them before, that yes, she has issues and she can be very difficult, but he's not willing to admit that he has issues too, and that he also needs to put in the work.
Mm.
And every time something comes up, then she's the problem, and he's not willing to hear her. She's saying how she's feeling, but he's sort of like gaslighting her into thinking that she's the problem and that she has issues and that's why she's feeling that way, and he has nothing to do with it. And so those kind of people won't be able to hear you at all, no matter how many times you say it, because they're just so adamant on not taking accountability or not wanting to admit that they're doing something wrong or they're the problem. And so you can say it once, you can say it twice, you can say it 3,000 times. They just won't be able to admit anything. And that's a lot of times the problem in relationships, that people don't want to take accountability. People don't want to believe that, you know, they are doing something wrong, or and it's not to say that there's something wrong with you, you're a terrible person and you're doing it on purpose and you're trying to hurt me. It's just, a lot of times we can't see what other people can see. And in a healthy relationship, I believe you'd be able to tell the other person and they'd be appreciative of, like, thanks for letting me know. I didn't realize that I was doing that. And I don't want to be that person to make you feel that way. And I'll pay more attention to it. But in an unhealthy relationship, or when the two people just aren't working or aren't right for each other, then it doesn't matter really how many times you say it. It's just, they don't want to change it. They take it as like you trying to attack them and attack their personality, or they're trying to turn it back on you. And there's not much you can do about it in that situation.
Yeah, and I would build on that in when you're in a healthy relationship, then I heard this one of my teachers when I was becoming a coach, she said that love should be the medicine. And it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of contradictory to what we were saying in the previous episode, but she was saying it in a sense that if you purely love someone and are loved by someone, like purely just
Mm-hmm.
simply and things like that, it should help things move along. And how I interpret it as is, for example, the first couple of months postpartum are a shit show. And I'm sorry, like,
Hmm.
I don't want this to be everything about, pregnancy and things like that, but it really is a shit show. And it was all about me. It was just all about me. And I was the problem of just, I felt horrible in my body and everything. And I mean, sure, it was completely understandable. I'd just given birth after 9 months of being pregnant. If you listen to season 2, it was tough.
Yeah.
And JT's role in our relationship as a loving, stable relationship was just to take care of me and help me through it. And it's just, and even in this situation where I'm the problem, in quote marks for people who are not using the video format, then it's completely his job to look after me and help me move through it. And so, did I express what I needed and things like that? It's her problem, not my problem. No, if you're in a loving relationship, her problem is your problem. His problem
Mm-hmm.
is your problem, and you want to help each other through it. And not just otherwise you're not building a relationship.
Yeah.
You're not a dependable person. And I think we are, living in this society, especially kind of women, we're receiving this advice of like, you do you and think about number one, and and you're the main priority and things like that. It's true, but but if you want to build relationships, you also have to think about other people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you do you is in a sense of like, be yourself and be true to yourself, or just like think about yourself, is when, the other person is not good for you or not right for you or hurting you or whatever. You have to think about yourself and and just
Mm.
like take yourself out of that situation. But like in a mutual loving relationship, then it's not just about you. Yes, you have to think of you so you can also bring your best self forward to this relationship and give from yourself to them, and also for yourself. But it's just, you have to think outside of just what you want to make this relationship work. And I think in your situation with this baby, yes, it may seem on the surface about you, but it's not. It's not just your baby. You didn't bring this baby it didn't come out of, you're not Virgin Mary, sorry, but it's
Nope.
him. It is about him, because you're not in a situation because you decided alone to bring a baby into this world and you stole his sperm and whatever, and just like, that's it. This is the baby and I'm forcing you to have one. It's something that you came to together, and that's right for the baby, and that's right for every relationship and all aspects of, you chose together to be in a situation, whether it's having a baby, moving in together, traveling to Thailand, or I don't know, buying a house or anything it is. It's something that you decided together. So even if one side is having more issues, or it's being expressed more through one side than it is the other, it's still something that you're going through together. You know what I mean? So
100%.
yeah, so if you're expressing yourself and you're showing up and you're trying to get them to understand your point of view, and they're just still like, if JT would be like, no, I'm sorry, but that's your body, that's your feelings, and there's nothing I can do about it, then I'd be like, God damn it, get that person out of your house.
Yeah, yeah.
Because yes, it's your body, but it's you two together that put your body in that situation. And so same goes here with Sophie, is that they both got to this point together, and if he's not willing to listen and do something about it like you are, then because she's really trying to, she just doesn't want to up and leave and give up. So
Mm.
she's really trying to think with herself, is this the right decision? am I making the right choice for me and for my future, and not just trying to do this, in the spur of the moment, of just out of emotions and in an extreme situation. So she's really doing this, I think, in a healthy way of like asking herself the right questions, of
Yeah.
just reflecting before you make this decision and being honest with yourself.
Yeah. Well, one of the questions she was asking herself is, how would I feel about this choice 5 years from now?
Yeah,
Damn, that's a difficult one. That's a difficult one.
it is.
And I'm not sure I agree with asking yourself this question when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to relationships. I think when it comes to, stuff like career and traveling and things like that, maybe. Um, but when it comes to like deep emotions and romantic emotions, it's so tough.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you should kind of ask yourself like for a more foreseeable future, as in, in a couple of months, this is going on at work. How will I feel if I'm single at this time? And then
Yeah.
in, next Christmas, how will I feel if I'm without him at this time? And I think that, she's able to compare, previous Christmases and previous work events and things like that, where he was there, and then kind of determine if it's kind of the same or better or worse and things like that. Because, 5 years from now, there's so many things that are going to change.
Yeah.
Um, but it's definitely, a good, a good thought exercise of just, how is a future me going to think about it? But the first future you is, tomorrow, and then a
Yeah.
week from now and a month from now. And I firmly believe that if you do something for yourself, like deeply for yourself today, like you've thought about it, this is what works best for you,
Mm-hmm.
then 5 years from now, you is going to thank you for it.
Yeah. And I think it's more of in the sense of like trying to, see outside of this specific moment of like, is this something that I'm just feeling right now? And I'm just thinking about it like from an overwhelmed perspective, or is it something that is ongoing and I'm going to continue feeding it until I end this? And
Yeah.
is it something, a lot of times just the thought of breaking up sort of gives you a relief of like, just being without these issues and being without these problems. And
Yeah.
that's a kind of a sense of that can help you really figure out. Because if you're if you're thinking about a breakup and it's just scaring you and it's something that seems like way too big and not something that you're ready for, then yes, you could also be convincing yourself, but it also might be something that maybe you still aren't there yet. But if it's something that you're thinking about and is just like, oh my God, get me out of this relationship right now, I'm just fantasizing about this breakup, then it's an indicator of like where you are on that spectrum. And just because you're on one side doesn't mean that's the decision you need to make, but it's like sort of it helps you understand what you're feeling. And if you're just like, get me out of here, then it means
Yeah.
something.
And I think that this is the only way that you can truly think this way is if you go from, you know, if you're not expecting him or her to change,
Mm-hmm.
because obviously, people change, or, some people change, some people don't change and evolve and things like that, and that's fine. But, you can't entertain the thought of 5 years down the line, he may have changed. He may have grown. He may have,
Mm-hmm.
changed this or gotten, dealt with this or gotten rid of this and things like that. You have to go from the belief that he hasn't changed,
Yeah.
because that's what you know.
Yeah, you definitely shouldn't depend on him
Yeah.
changing or him making, or you. Like, you can't depend on just either of you, you know, unless you're putting in the effort and constantly working. But like, again, going back to this couple that I know, like my friends, is just they keep putting a deadline and they keep extending it because hoping something will change. But
Yeah.
it's just their word is shot to shit. Sorry to say it that way, but it's just like what it's not, because they keep saying it and like and committing to it with quotation marks, but
Mm.
when you don't stand by your word, then your word is worthless. And
Yeah.
so you can't depend on that. You have to think of right now. Will you end up regretting it maybe one day? Probably you'll definitely have moments. Like I keep, there's a lot of things in life that, you may decide right now and later down the line you say, oh, I should have chosen whatever. You have moments of regret. There's not much you can do about it. You have to decide for who you are right
Today.
now,
Yeah.
today, and the future Sophie has to trust present day Sophie that she made the right choice for her and that it was for, you know, the
I'd
best.
say the other way around. I think present day Sophie has to trust that she's making the best decision for future Sophie.
Yeah, it goes both ways.
Yeah.
Because
But yeah,
when future Sophie might regret it one day, she might have a moment of like, oh, I miss him or all that. Then like that's your anchor of trusting past Sophie or present day
yeah.
Sophie of like she made the right choice for a reason.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's, today I personally, sometimes reflect on choices that I made or didn't make or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a twinge of regret. And then I think, no, at that point it felt like the right decision,
Yeah.
and I'm just gonna stick to it. And it's a good, I think that's why, you have to kind of think about it and own it and, decide why you're staying. And I think
Yeah.
deciding to stay is, it's linked with the first question of like, am I staying out of fear or guilt? Choosing to stay is a more difficult and toxic choice than choosing to leave. Unless with your choice to stay, you're kind of like, okay, well, I'm just going to get over absolutely everything, which is
Yeah.
very hard to do. And it's not impossible, but, you know, not amazing.
Yeah. I think you have to be honest and think of like, am I staying for the right reasons or the wrong reasons?
Yeah.
And I think if you have to ask yourself, why am I staying? Then that's like, the indicator in itself of like, for me, even in the hardest times with Zev, I don't even question should I stay or should I go? Because I know that yes, we're going through a difficult time now, but I'm not going to go. I'm not going to give up. I don't need to. I know that this is like just a momentary lapse, but like if you're having to ask yourself, why am I here and should I stay? Then, like in Hebrew, we say, if there's doubt, then there's no doubt.
Yeah. French, we have the same. Yeah, we don't really have that in English, do we?
I don't know. I don't think I've ever heard it in English, or
But
maybe just like because
yeah,
I've been translating for so long, and it's just,
yeah, just to kind of made it. But yeah, it's, I think I definitely agree with the fact that some people give up too easily. But I think if
mm-hmm.
you've kind of thought about your own behavior and then expressed your needs and, tried to find solutions and all of that has failed, then, it's not giving up, it's choosing a different route. I
Yeah,
think the people who give up too easily, when I hear about people, oh, they got along just fine, it's just that they decided to get a divorce because they weren't in love anymore. If everything else was perfectly fine,
yeah,
I believe that that's giving up too easily. If you
mm-hmm.
can try and rekindle, because then you can fall in love with other people. So you can fall in
Yeah.
love with the person that you've had kids with and have been living with for years. But anyway, that's a different story. But if you've tried everything and to rekindle everything and kind of power through everything and it still hasn't worked, then it's not giving up.
No, it's not. It's coming to terms with something that isn't working, and I think a lot of times, people may have even used it as an excuse of like, I just don't want to give up easily. I got married or I'm with this person for a long time and it just seems a shame to throw it all away. And it's just an excuse to to stay in a relationship that isn't working just because you're scared to be alone or you're scared to not find anyone else. Like, a lot of times that's why we don't break up, because, and why we stay in such terrible relationships for a long time, is because what's the point? Like, I don't want to go out and start finding someone else. I see my single friends all miserable and the dating pool is not great. Or, I just rather be miserable in a relationship than miserable alone. And that's, I think, due to the fact that most people don't actually learn how to enjoy being single and use it properly. And like,
Well, that's
I'm
everything to
case in
do with,
point, but
yeah.
like,
It's everything to do with, am I staying out of fear? Yeah. If
yeah,
you're
exactly. That's the
scared,
whole thing.
oh,
Yeah. And you don't know what you're missing out on. And that's, I think, a lot of times why, the stereotype about couples is just, this is what marriage is. This is what relationship is. It's supposed to be hard and rough and like annoying each other and whatever. But I don't believe that's what relationships are. And I think a lot of times people just settle for, you know, what everyone settles for because they don't believe that there's anything better out there. And, as someone who hasn't settled and has been single for a long time and has waited for the right person, you know, I mean, I don't want to brag and I don't want this to sound bad, but I think I probably have the happiest relationship out of everyone around me, even like a lot of people just, you get what I mean? It's just like people just,
yeah, for sure.
no, I
I
don't want
mean,
to keep looking. I want to start a family. I want to get married. I want to have kids. I want to do this. I want to just move on and not wait till I'm whatever.
no, I completely agree. And I don't know the relationships in around you, but yeah, you're in a very good relationship, and it's just because you're so like safe in the knowledge that when you're single, you're fine. You are choosing to stay with Zev, and I think that
Hmm.
makes a world of difference.
Yeah.
I think that's the whole different, of just, I had JT and I having this conversation where the same as you, like, I'm not afraid of being single. I even enjoy it. So being
Hmm.
with him is a choice, and that makes our relationship so much better. Whereas he is a bit afraid of being single, and so it's a different dynamic. But
Yeah.
yeah, if you're staying because of fear of the unknown, it's kind of like, not taking that promotion or not going on that amazing trip or things like that because you're afraid of the unknown, then you're kind of stopping yourself from evolving.
Yeah. You're just running around in circles and you're stuck in this vicious cycle of just that's making you more and more miserable. And so at some point you have to be brave and cut it out. And I think when you fear change the most is also when you need it the most.
Probably.
So,
Before we go, Michelle, what does a respectful, clear, clean breakup look like?
hmm. Um, I think it's
For Sophie, so no kids involved.
yeah, I think when there's no kid, obviously when it's just a clear cut and I think it's not coming and spewing out, you were this, you were that, and just like blaming and taking it out on the other person and using this breakup as an excuse to just let everything out all at once as a wave and just,
Mm.
if you remember what's her face from Zenab, it's
Yes,
like from Love is Blind, I think one of the
and
first
cold.
seasons. And I think, and yes, and so I get it. You have these feelings and they may be true and they may be valid, but the way she did that in front of everyone with just spewing everything out and making him feel bad, even if it's true, it's a terrible way to break up with someone. And I think there's something about breaking up with grace that just gives you more closure than anything. I believe there's so much you can say. There's so much you can just blame them for and shove in their face. But is it going to do anything? Is it going to change anything? You're anyway walking away.
Mm.
It doesn't matter anymore. You can say, look, I appreciate the time we had together. I love you. I loved you and we had some great times. I think recently it's just been rough and I tried to talk about it and you couldn't understand. And so this is it for me. I need to think of myself. I feel like we're just going nowhere and running in circles. And just mutual respect, and just understand that you're not blaming, you are taking accountability as well, and you're doing it calmly.
Yeah.
And so, I think a lot of times when we're hysterical, or when we're blaming them, or when we're talking to them in just like an controllable way, and we're not controlling our feelings, they're sort of like, oh my God, thank God I'm getting rid of this crazy person. So, you want to be that person who breaks up, not for this reason, but you want to make the breakup in a way that they're like suddenly, oh shit, look what I lost. Like, look how they're breaking up with such grace.
Yeah, and just, no drama.
Yeah.
I would add to that, no staying in touch as a practicality.
Mm-hmm.
Just, breakup's a breakup.
Yeah.
And I think it's a bit of a red flag for me if people are in touch with their exes.
Yeah.
Not somebody that they briefly dated, like proper relationship, had feelings, exes. Like, it's over, clean cut.
Yeah, it also just prolongs everything. It makes it much harder to start something new and get out into the world and meet new people, or travel, or try new things. It just is sort of holding you back in a way. Maybe further down the line, if you really wanted to, you could try be friends. But I think in the moment of the breakup, it's just clear cut. That's it. And I think you need to come with your decision and stick to it, and not let them convince you to maybe give it another try, because you've already given it so many tries. And just, I think it's coming in, breaking up, and getting out.
Yep.
So.
Well, tell us about your breakups.
Yeah. And, what was the hardest part for you? How did you do it? And how did you feel after?
And let's see next week about how Sophie got over it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's not, spoiler, it's not easy to get over someone, even if it's, even if it was a bad relationship, and even if it was long overdue. So.
Exactly.
Anyway, till next time.
Bye.
That's it for this episode of Pop Culture Cupid.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We're glad you're here.
Make sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening.
You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Reddit for more behind-the-scenes real talk.
And if you want to support the show, check us out on Patreon.
Until next time, be kind, be happy, be healthy, and remember, heartbreak isn't the end.
It's the plot twist.